Okay, the Chinese communists have told their army of foreign students there's no more studying online. They have to hit the campuses of universities worldwide. Now, that's entirely understandable from my point of view. I mean, it's hard to infiltrate your own spies into a community unless they can actually hide in plain sight. We already know these students receive priority treatment in our universities, and that's because the unis want their cash more than they want to maintain their credibility. We also know that China interferes in our campus teaching and our student politics. There are reports of harassment, intimidation and censorship as a result of foreign interference on our campuses. And recently in an Adelaide City Council election, the Electoral Commission disqualified a batch of foreign student votes, suggesting they were collected and completed by an agent of Communist China. Now, 3 years ago, the Parliament tasked a committee with investigating this foreign influence on campus and examine what should be done about it. The committee made some recommendations, and last week the government tabled a response. Here to rip some more skin off the onion of politics is former Liberal MP Nicolle Flint. Nicolle, thanks for joining me again. Other than what I just mentioned, what are some of the problems that have been prompted this report?
Well, Cory, I think you've given a very good summary, as you always do. This is about freedom of thought, freedom of speech and student safety on campus. But it's also about academic freedom. So making sure that our researchers and our academics and our lecturers are not being stopped from looking into certain issues. They're not feeling that they can't speak freely about and investigate every issue freely, and also that they're not being unduly influenced to say things that were they not subject to certain forces they wouldn't be saying.
We also saw, I think, a couple of years ago where a number of academics were being paid for research whilst employed at Australian universities. They're also being paid by China, which would then claim the research as their own. Now, is this sort of scandalous behaviour ongoing? Do you know? Did the report have anything to say about that?
So the Federal Parliament's Joint Standing Committee on Security and Intelligence has released last year an excellent report, and yes, it does go to that. They made, probably a third of their recommendations were looking at undue influence, paid influence of researchers and academics, and whether foreign actors were infiltrating their studies and their advice and things like that. What I'm most concerned about here, though, Cory, is that we've got this fantastic report from the Joint Standing Committee. It was unanimous and bipartisan. And the new Labor government have only accepted 12 recommendations, and they've either accepted in principle or noted the other 15. Now, these the recommendations that they've only sort of said, oh, look, we'll have a look at it, include things like reporting, annual reports, transparency, ensuring that academics are not being paid by foreign entities and being influenced by foreign entities. And there are specific recommendations about Confucius Institutes, and I'm sure that our viewers at home would be well aware of the concerns that many people have raised about Confucius Institutes on our university campuses.
Essentially, they're rewriting history to make the Chinese Communist Party look like the heroes of history. That's how I understand it. And they're being pushed by a lot of Labor politicians.
Well, in terms of the Confucius Institutes, I will just quickly read this quote from the committee report. A witness said, the Chinese government viewed Confucius Institutes as an agent of soft power and an important element of the global grand propaganda strategy. They would not discuss some political issues, and students of these institutes were viewed as potential valuable assets for future espionage and political influence operations. Now, the Joint Standing Committee said, in relation to Confucius Institutes, we want to know, the Australian public should have a right to know how much they've paid to be on campus, who's being employed, and the nature of the arrangements with the university. The Labor government, in their response, has only noted this recommendation. I think that's a huge concern, Cory.
It should be, but I note that many Labor politicians, including a former Foreign Affairs Minister, was pushing Confucius Institutes. They've been backing them in. And now this committee report has found that they're agents of soft power and propaganda. It's quite extraordinary.
Exactly, Cory. And look, I was really interested by the timing of the release of Labor's response. I think we've seen a new low in terms of trying to hide government information. They released it on Valentine's Day, where I'm sure most Australians had taken their loved one out for dinner and bought them flowers and charmed them and things. But it was also Senate estimates. And it was also a House of Representatives sitting day. So Labor have essentially dumped this report where I think they hoped no one would see it. I haven't seen much commentary about it, and I hope now that we will see the Australian media dig into this a bit more, because we do need better reporting, transparency, accountability. You know, the committee said we should have annual audits of how many complaints are made by students or academics on campus. There should be better protections for students and academics on campus where they do feel that they've been unduly influenced.
The problem here, Nicolle, and thank goodness you're on the job with this and getting into it, because the politicians are going missing. And as you say, they dump this stuff in plain sight so that no one will ever see it.
Well, the Labor government did, because full credit to the members of the Joint Standing Committee who were both Labor and Liberal, Cory.
Okay. It begs the question, though. The Labor government are obviously making a question. What's more important, the cash from foreign students, the academic credibility of our universities, or our national security? You can't really have all three of those, and yet it seems that Labor's trying to have a bit each way.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, trying to appease or repair the relationship with China. I do just want to note, you know, foreign students, international students, are critical to our national economy. They're critical to society. It's fabulous that we have people from all over the world come here to study. I want to make sure that our international students are just as safe as our Australian students. But, you know, all students should have the right to exercise freedom of thought, freedom of choice, freedom of speech on campus, Cory. If you can't do that at university, where can you?
I agree with you, but I also want to make sure it's not a backdoor visa scheme, which it is for many people that come here. I want to make sure they maintain the same academic rigour that they're expected, that our own students are expected to, because right now it's a diploma mill, our universities, and they're doing us a disservice and costing us tens of billions of dollars a year. That's my view.
And we're going to keep an eye on things like that, Cory. That's why we're here, exploring the hidden agenda.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nicolle Flint. It's wonderful to have you with me, as always.